Yo, how's it going? So, what were drugs like in the Viking era? I I watched the other what were drugs like in the Mayan and Egypt era, but and now I'm gonna head towards this Viking era. You know, when I think of Vikings, I genuinely think of Vinland Saga and the next God of War Ragnarok that's coming out. Exciting stuff.
Medieval Europeans believed in and feared many monsters. Basilisk, demons, dragons, also smart independent women, who they misbranded as witches.
I'm not a witch, I'm not a witch.
How dare they be smart, huh?
But unlike these made-up monsters, there was one nightmare that was very real and could actually hurt them. A Viking berserker. These raging
Yes.
Norse warriors were known to enter raids and battles with bloodthirsty anger, with madness like a dog, and the strength of a bear or bull. Their crazy tranced eyes, full of lust for blood, were enough to make their enemies lose all hope long before the first strike. However, their
Exciting.
penchant for violence, gore, and killing wasn't just something inherent. Their blood dance looked like a trance-like state because they were actually high. Welcome to Nutty History, and let's talk about what drugs were used recreationally during the
Let's
age
go.
of Vikings.
Excited. Mushroom mania.
Vikings would perform blessing rituals before walking into battle or going for a raid. It's believed that during this ritual, berserkers would go into a self-induced hypnotic trance. They would lose conscious control of their actions as their mind would act subconsciously in this disassociative state. People in this state seem remote, have little awareness of their surroundings, and have reduced awareness of pain and increased muscle strength. Despite
Jesus.
losing their ability of their critical thinking and having a very little grasp on their social inhibitions, they would still be awake and rage into the battle. Scandinavia is home to many fungal plants, and so the common belief behind the savage bloodthirst of the mighty berserkers was thought to be the consumption of these mushrooms. It started in 1784. A priest named Oddman proposed a theory that going berserk was a result of eating fly agaric mushrooms. One of the psychoactive compounds in fly agaric includes muscimol, which is a GABA receptor agonist, causing sedative, hypnotic, depressant, and hallucinogenic effects. Because
Okay.
GABA receptors are everywhere in the brain, muscimol alters neuronal activity in many regions, including the cerebellum, hippocampus, and cerebral cortex, mainly the regions responsible for emotions and higher executive thinking. The effects of muscimol start within 30 to 120 minutes and last for about 5 to 10 hours.
Jesus.
Side effects include increased salivation, muscle twitching, tremors, and strong delirium, which all describe berserking. The fly agaric theory is still quite popular and widely accepted among the masses, but most experts find it implausible. Oddman based his hypotheses on reports about Siberian shamans, but he never tried the mushroom himself. If he had, he might have changed his mind. In addition to its hallucinogenic effects, eating agaric mushrooms can lead to depression and can make the user apathetic. Fly agaric is also quite poisonous and can cause nausea, vomiting, dizziness, hallucinations, involuntary movements, and seizures.
Oh
White
my
agaric
God.
could not
Sounds like so much work right now just to get that high.
be the cause of berserk fury either, due to the logic that it shares most of the poisonous effects of fly agaric and could put a person in a coma or outright kill a man. Another mushroom that may have been the cause of berserk fury was the fungus Claviceps purpurea, as it contains a compound used to synthesize the hallucinogen LSD, or lysergic acid diethylamide. But Claviceps purpurea is also highly poisonous. However, the berserker trance was more like psycho-murder automatism, which in forensic psychiatry can be described as diminished responsibility. The high from
Okay.
that is followed by a major emotional catharsis in the form of tiredness, exhaustion, and obviously long hours of sleep. Clearly, such practices of achieving abreaction of strong
Oh my God, I forgot. Holy shit. I've never went to go see the Norseman.
aggressive, destructive, and sadistic impulses
watched
diminished after
that.
the introduction of Christianity,
Sorry.
as such rituals and actions were and are considered demonic and thus were discouraged.
The Henbane Huza.
So,
Who's that?
if mushrooms were too stomach-churning for the strongest of Vikings, what was helping them achieve the trance of terror and tyranny? According to the findings of modern scientists, it might have been henbane. Henbane, or stinky nightshade, has propped up in many Norse burial grounds, including the grave of a berserker. Often considered as the crazy plant in much older civilizations, consumption of henbane can cause feelings of delirium, inhibition loss, and manic episodes.
Oh
It
my
also
God.
triggers visual disturbances, hallucinations, drowsiness, and red skin, making it the perfect match for what berserkers experience during their fury. Henbane also acts pretty well as a painkiller, as we mentioned in our video What Drugs Were Like for Ancient Romans and Greeks. Thus, it does fit the bill to help in reducing the sensation of pain among the no-armor-wearing Viking vanguards, who were known for being wild, unpredictable, and highly aggressive.
Yep.
Now comes the question, how do they consume henbane? Karsten Fatur, an
Tea.
ethnobotanist at the University of Ljubljana in Slovenia, has very interesting theories about that. Instead of going with a conventional way of smoking it, he believes they might have infused it with alcohol, made an ointment out of it, and rubbed it on their body.
Jesus, alcohol is so influential. Like, you just add anything into alcohol and just drink it back in the days. It's so weird.
Or surprisingly, made an herbal tea out of it. We know what
Okay,
you're
cool.
thinking. Savage
thought tea.
berserkers and posh herbal tea do not go well together, especially
really?
on the eve of a battle or a raid. But it makes sense because henbane was also found in the grave of a sorceress in Denmark. Nordic sorceresses, or vulva as they were called, were sort of like ancient Greek oracles or sibyls who used hallucinogens to go into a trance-like state to see the future. Vulva worked in a quite similar fashion, but had more shaman-like flair about them. If anybody was making herbal tea out of henbane or stinking nightshade, it would be these ladies. But that doesn't mean henbane was a relatively safer choice than shrooms. Henbane has been used over the centuries as a sedative, a sleeping agent, and to induce hallucinations. The plant is deadly toxic, and even though people did use the plant, it was not at all harmless. So the toxicity had to be reduced because henbane contains hyoscyamin and scopolamine, two substances that have a strong narcotic effect on the nervous system. If the seeds are heated, the two substances evaporate and the vapors may act like a narcotic. This is how the Oracle of Delphi must have used it back in ancient Greece, and perhaps the tea vulva made in Scandinavia was more for inhaling than drinking and must have been served hot right off the pot.
That's pretty
So
cool.
then why is henbane preferred as a more plausible Viking drug over shrooms? Both the plant and the fly agaric mushroom could have caused many of the symptoms described to berserkers, but according to Karsten Fatur, agaric consumption doesn't give you the bloodlust like henbane may have. However, all of this study is still considered quite speculative, and some experts believe that berserkers' trance may have been totally natural and have nothing to do with recreational drugs. But they cannot deny vulva's involvement with henbane and perhaps cannabis as well.
The adrenaline. Cannabis carnival. What?
In 1903, a farmer stumbled upon an ancient Viking ship in Norway that contained many artifacts from the 800s AD. Among the artifacts were the skeletons of two women and a curious leather bag that contained cannabis seeds. These seeds are thought to be connected to one of those women, known as the Osper Queen. The Osper Queen was suggested to be the Queen Asa of the Yngling clan, mother of Halfdan the Black and grandmother of Harold Fairhair. Many archaeologists believe the woman was not just a secular queen, but also a priestess of Freya, the love goddess of Norse mythology. Archaeologists have believed that the cannabis seeds were used in rituals during this pre-Christian period in Scandinavia. Freya was associated with hemp sowing and harvest festivals across northern Europe, and often
I like how she's riding two cats and the other dude's riding a wild boar. What the fuck? I mean, cool.
erotic rituals were held in her honor.
What the fuck?
It's thought that the feminine cannabis flower had erotic and love-generating powers, and that those who consumed these flowers would be imbued with the joy and seductive tendencies of the love goddess. Furthermore, Vikings were perhaps the first to take weed across the Big Pond as well. In August 2018, an archaeological team excavated a peat bog located nearly 100 feet east of the Viking settlement at Lons Almedos. They found a layer of ecofacts or environmental remains that may have been brought to the site by humans that were radiocarbon dated to the 12th and 13th century. These ecofacts included the remains of two beetles that were not from Newfoundland. Don't get your hopes up though, they were not John Lennon or Ringo, just some bugs from Greenland.
Really?
Also, the other remains were pollens of walnuts and cannabis that also don't naturally grow at Lons Almedos. Vikings were regularly in and out of Newfoundland for about 200 years. The evidence of cannabis pollen matching their settlement time
Excuse me.
does indicate that it must be them who brought the green leaf to the Americas. However, there are still some doubts on this theory, but if not them, then who else? And that leaves us with opium. It is true
Course.
that Vikings were aware of poppy and cultivated it in their Danish Viking Age kitchen garden. But was it used recreationally? Unfortunately, neither the Viking sagas nor archaeological excavations have given us an answer to that. But what do you think? Tell us in the comments about what other ages or civilizations should we cover in this series.
Yeah, like I was always aware that Vikings were like would drink like mushroom, will eat mushrooms or drink it. Now I know they drink it with alcohol, but yeah, it's a crazy like domino effect of like plants that trigger this berserk rage.